y'all, how are y'all doing? I wanted to take a little time to show you some very different types of ribbons and different types of bows you can make without having to have a tool. I see people all the time that are doing bows and they're using their tools and stuff, and I just want to show you several things to know about ribbon and several things to do with the ribbon, making bows and so on. And I'm Deanna with Ivycreates, and so this is I grew up in a flower shop. I started making these things around 10 years old, and there are lots of different ways and different kinds of bows to make. So we're going to get busy on that. I've got a bunch of different ribbons to play around with, and I hope you'll learn some really good new things from this, and let's get ready. Okay, so let's talk about the different types of ribbon. There are ribbons come in many different sizes, but the most popular sizes you're going to see are these sizes. And you may occasionally get one a little wider than this or bigger like this. But you're going to have a size that's going to be about this size, which is roughly 2.5, 2 inches, somewhere around there. I didn't bring my measuring tape out to tell you. But, and then you have this one here, and then you'll have this one here. And these are going to be the most common sizes that you're going to use. When you buy this one is 1.5 inches. And let's see, this one is 5/8 of an inch, and then we have this one, which is 2.5 inches. Okay, so sometimes you'll get them, 3 to 4 inches wide, and when we're talking about that, we're talking about the width of it, but not that often. Most of the time, you're going to be using ribbons like this. Occasionally, you might even find some other smaller, very small ribbon. Like this is just like a string that's like jute twine that's been dyed. And then there's a lot of other things. But there's other things to look at as well on the types of ribbon that you get. This one here happens to be like a burlap backed ribbon, and it's wired on either side on the edges. And that is so that you can shape anything that you want to shape as far as a bow goes. You can make it do whatever you want it to do, and it'll stay that way. And that is very, very important for understanding how to make bows and everything, so that it stays that way. And so we've got this one here, and that you can just wire on the ribbon. The next one I want to show you, this here is this is a satin ribbon. And y'all, my puppy dog was trying to eat on my satin ribbon. But this is a solid satin ribbon. And I'm just going to take the side off of it. Now the difference on this one, it does not have a wire of any kind. It's very, very soft. The good parts about these are you can also iron them. And they're good for making hair bows for kids. And corsages for whatever occasion. But that is called a satin ribbon, and we used to take apart all of our bows every year and iron them. Even the velvet bows during Christmas, they were satin, so you could turn them over on the back and you could iron them out and make new bows with them. Just a thought to save you on some ribbon. The newer ribbons, a lot of those that you get nowadays that are velvet have plastic backing. Obviously, you cannot iron that because it will just melt away. So that's our satin. The next one I'm going to show you is these are sheer ribbons. You can look at those. They're sheer, and you can do many different things with a sheer ribbon. A lot of people mix and match the satin and the sheer ribbons. If I can get this piece off of here. They mix them for corsages and such. Majority of the time when I'm making an arrangement for a flower arrangement or something of the sort, I'm not going to be using a sheer ribbon. A small ribbon like this. I'll be using the 1.5 or larger inches ribbon. So this one is 7/8 of an inch. That's a sheer ribbon. This one actually does have a wire in it, as you can see, because it's staying in place, and that's kind of unusual for one this size to have something to stiffen it up. And I'll tell you, wire ribbons are the easiest ones to make bows out of. Absolutely easiest. So that's that one. And this one's another just another sheer type of a ribbon. And let's see, I have some fall ribbons that I was playing with, and that's going to be these right here. Now this one, you can see that there's kind of a texture in it, a little bit of a texture on the sides of it, and you might be able to see it better in the green. I don't know, probably won't show up in the camera real well. However, this one's a thicker fabric ribbon, and it's called Grow Grain Ribbon, and that is the type that you typically use for hair bows for girls. When you're making a hair bow, that's called Grow Grain Ribbon, and you can actually easily iron this ribbon. And like I said, if you want to be able to use your ribbons from year to year, and you're going to use them for different things, they oftentimes get smushed in the boxes. So if you get a quality ribbon like a Grow Grain or a fabric of some sort, or something with a wire on the edge, then you can always take it apart after you're done with it, just like that, and you can iron it, and that way you've got brand new ribbon all over again. And so you can see the difference there. This one here is just a sheer that does not have any wire at all in it, so it comes right back to its regular shape, and that's another sheer ribbon. And these are the Grow Grain ribbons, and you'll know because they have this cross pattern to the fabric of the ribbon. So I'm going to set those aside real quick, and let's see which ribbon we're going to do next. So those are a few of the different ribbon types, and like I said, you really want to as often as possible use wired edge ribbon, because it just makes everything so much simpler than having to use something without a wired edge. Okay, so then we have, our burlap ribbons. We can use those, lots of different colors and sizes and styles. There's also your extra fancy ribbons like this here. This is going to be more expensive, and this is the kind of thing that you might use, say, on a piece of furniture, or as a specialty part of something for a small tiny bow. But that's an expensive, right there, something you would probably get in the fabric section of your store. That's an expensive piece of ribbon there. As you can see, it's gold lined with burgundy and everything, and it's going to be pretty costly. So I'm going to set that one aside. I found this one, which I absolutely love and adore. This was in the Hobby Lobby, and it says $5.99, and it's 9 feet of metal ribbon. And I will tell you this, it is sharp as it can be, so do be careful with it. This was in the wedding section of Hobby Lobby, where they have all the different bows and things you can have for your wedding. And I imagine this was supposed to be for to wrap a bridal bouquet or something, but it's actually metal. And this is awesome. You can use this for all kinds of embellishments on jewelry boxes, on signage, everything. I do tell you though, it is very sharp on the end, so please do be careful if you get something like this to play around with it, because you can easily cut your fingers with it, so be careful. And but I love the pattern. It's very much like a tin ceiling in an old house, and I just think that is the absolute coolest ribbon I have found. So let me bend this up just a touch so it won't come loose. All right, so our next ribbon that we have is going to be a This is a twisting ribbon, like for doing balloons and stuff. This is a curly ribbon, and you can pull this out and use it for balloons. Hold on. This might be a little bit easier. Okay, so this is a curly ribbon, and you use this usually to tie to balloons. However, you can add it to your different bows, and if you add it to your bows, it'll just add that little extra something to it. And you can also use them for wrapping presents and things like that. And the reason why you use this type of ribbon as opposed to the others can get to be very expensive. I do try to get stuff from the Dollar Tree because that is definitely worth it. But other ribbons can get to be very expensive, whereas the curly ribbon that I have here, which is very thin and small, is very, very cheap. So I'm just going to show you what you do is you go on the back of it and you use something sharp like scissors or a knife or something, and you put the knife or scissors right there and then your thumb right on top of it, and you put a little pressure down on the ribbon on this side. You just pull it a little bit tight, and as you pull, the ribbon's going to slip through your hand like this, and it's going to come out of the other end since I'm putting pressure on it, and it's going to curl. You see how it kind of curled a little bit? Now if you do a little bit faster, you see how it curled up just like that? Made it a little bouncy curl so if I wanted to use that for, say, like to hang from a balloon or something, I could easily make that as part of a decoration. So that's what the curly ribbon is for. It's really has a lot of great uses for adding that little extra bit to whatever you're going to be doing. So the next thing I want to show you is, this is a decorative mesh. Now, decorative mesh can be used many different ways. A lot of folks use them on the wreaths. You can use them on a metal form, on a wreath, to fill it all out. I have a couple of different ways that I use them. Now, I will say this. Your decorative mesh, a lot of folks are really picky. Now, this stuff here, I believe, came from the Dollar Tree, so there's not much to it. Let's see, it is 6 inches times 5 yards. So it's 6 inches wide times 5 yards long. And so what you're going to do with the mesh, if you were putting it on a wreath form, you would cut a bunch of different lengths of mesh. So I'm just going to pretend that I'm cutting it. And you could measure if you wanted to measure. So you could measure it if you wanted to. You don't have to. I usually just measure it and get a bunch of them that are the same length. So then what you do from there is you take each end and you roll it towards the center like this. And then you take some sort of wire, like say a chenille stem or pipe cleaner or whatever you want to call it, and I'm going to just put that in the middle and bunch it together like this, pull it up like this here, and twist. Now anytime that you're doing the chenille stems, hold the chenille stems or the wire or whatever you're using in place in one hand and twist the bow in the other hand. Why do I twist the bow instead of twisting the ribbon, the wire like this? Well, that is because it actually makes it tighter if you do it on the bow than if you do it on the wire itself. So always remember that. So if I were applying this to a wreath form, it would be like this, and I would take this part here and put it into my wire form, whatever wire form I'm using, and I would have bunches of these. And that's why when you're doing the mesh, you typically want to get a wider mesh. I prefer like an 8 to 10 inch mesh that's a wider mesh to do these little rolls with, and you fill them all around the edges of your wire frame. Let's see. So that's, and in addition to that, you can add more different colors. You can also make bows out of these. You don't have to do just the one type of wreath that they show. If you go on YouTube or Google or Facebook, you can find all different kinds of wreaths that look like this. They even make them now to where they make centers in the middle and make it look like a flower, and those can be really quite beautiful. And all of that's done with the mesh. And the difference between a cheap mesh and an expensive mesh is when you cut these ends on it, it may fray, and it has a less likelihood to do that with a more expensive mesh. So I'm just going to set this aside for a minute. Alright, and the next thing we're going to do is we're going to look at the other alternatives to ribbon. Now, we have, this is jute twine. It makes an excellent little bow. You can see that it's very thin, and it's very, very, very inexpensive if you do not buy it in the ribbon section. Go to another section of the store, say like automotive or the hardware section, purchase it there for under $2, and you've got all the jute twine you could ever need, and you can always use jute twine. In addition to that, I also purchase cotton twine, and that comes in a couple of different ways. This one I think I probably got from Walmart. So I'm just going to cut the outside. Normally I would not cut these unless I was using them, so I'm doing this just for you, because otherwise your ribbon containers get full of loose ribbon and nobody wants that. So this is 420 feet of cotton twine. And, excuse me one second, 420 feet of cotton twine. And this is just, basically, you can cotton string, and you can use it for just about anything. There again, if you're doing something really small and you need something, a little small ribbon. In addition to that, it comes in other sizes and looks. This is also called baker's twine. And that's cotton, and you can use it on food, but you can also use it for crafts. And this was at the Dollar Tree, and let's see, it is 250 feet of cotton twine for $1. So that's our cotton alternatives. There are many different alternatives you can use for ribbons, cotton and jute, and as you saw, I think I have this, oh yeah. This here is the dyed jute twine ribbon that I had. It's dyed the orange color. I didn't dye this. This came this way. So let me move this mesh thing and hang on one second. Okay, now I have some, here is some raffia. This is another type of, basically a ribbon type that people use. Where I got this one from was a hula skirt they had sold at the Dollar Tree, and it was made of raffia, and I was like, oh my goodness, that's so excellent. With raffia, you don't have to do anything at all of any kind of skill. It is so easy to use. You just put it together, and it's instantly a bow, and it instantly looks good. And you can see I'm just taking apart a bow that I had made, and you can just squish it all together, tie something around it, and bam, you've got a bow. That's what I love about raffia. There is nothing to making a bow out of raffia. Now I apologize if the sound is too loud on this. I've got my microphone sitting right up here so you can hear me real well, so I won't have to do a voiceover. So let me set this aside and just show you and kind of play around with a couple of pieces. And I'll set these aside as well. Tell my jute twine. I don't know why I always got to call it jute twine. You know what jute is. You have jute, you have sisal. There are lots of different types of fabrics on that. I wanted to also show you, here's another example of a ribbon. And this type of ribbon, this is from the Dollar Tree, and I will tell you it's awesome because this is a jeweled look ribbon. And as far as if you're doing a wedding bouquet or something, you wrap this around the stem of the bouquet and you tie it, glue it tight, and it'll look really, really super fancy. It can also look great as a bracelet for a corsage or something of that sort, or just mixed in with some other ribbon. But it's good to have lots of different textures and lots of different kinds of ribbons so that you can mix and match all of your ribbons together, which is the big thing right now. Here's another type. This is just a mesh looking ribbon, and it's not wired or anything. It's just a squishy mesh ribbon. There's this is iridescent, and this is actually one of my favorite ribbons, and I believe I found this also at the Dollar Tree. And I love iridescent stuff. I don't know if it's an October thing, but this looks like an iridescent spider web. And you can't really see it real well in the camera, can you? It's hard to see, but it's really, really pretty and really sparkly, and and it's also wired, so that's fantastic. And that's my favorite, definitely my favorite ribbon. Alright, so let me put this over here and get started on showing you a couple of things about these bows. Alright, so the first thing is, if you can tie your shoes, you can tie a bow. And the only difference in tying a bow than in tying your shoes is paying attention to direction that things go. So when I'm tying a bow, let's just say, let me find something to tie a bow on. Glow-in-the-dark paint. Looks fabulous with a bow on it. Alright, so I'm going to tie this around the neck of my glow-in-the-dark paint, like so. And I'm just taking my 2 strands and crossing them over. This is really no different than tying your shoes. This is a simple, basic bow. So I'm going to pull it hopefully tight around the neck of whatever, if I were using a vase or whatever. Even if I didn't want to leave it on this thing right here that I've got and I want to take it off and use it on something else, I would just leave this little bit loose here, and then you'll know. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make a loop. And y'all, honestly, I'm left-handed. If I can learn how to do this, anybody can. It took me until I was 6 or 7 to learn how to tie my shoes, and a little girl that was in my Head Start with me, and I'll never forget, she was the one who taught me how to tie my shoes because I couldn't do it because I was left-handed, and my mom never could teach me because she was right-handed. And that was true with just about anything. So I'm going to make a loop, and I'm going to pull that loop downward underneath this ribbon here. Okay, so you can see I have a loop, and I'm going to go under this ribbon here. So I'm going to go under and over that piece of my loop that's still right here. Sorry, I'm trying to show you this the best way that I can on it. So when I come over the top, I'm going to come under again that same loop and pull just like you would tying your shoes. I'm going to pull that loop through. And if you watched exactly how I did that, that makes the perfect bow, simple bow, to where both of your loops are at the top. Let me see if I can get that up. I might have to turn off one of these lights. No, not so good. Okay. Let's see about this one. Anyways, so this makes the perfect bow as far as both of your loops are up at the top and both of your tails are down at the bottom. And that's the way you want your bow to look when you're done. And I'll slide it off of this bottle so you can see it a little bit better. So we're not going to pay attention to where it was hooked to the bottle, okay? We're just going to flatten that. So all you do after you've done your bow, and you can glue this to something if you wanted to, you can do however you want. And the main thing is that know that this doesn't have to be your final product, because you can still pull on your loops to make them larger or smaller, you know, however you want your bow to look, just like you would on your shoes. And that's the main thing, is being mindful in the way that you tie it, so that when you're done, the loops are up top and the streamers are down low. And you can tie many loops just like that. And that's your basic. Anytime that you have super thin ribbon, or maybe really expensive ribbon like this other one that I showed you, this one here, that's the type of bow you're usually going to use. With raffia, you can tie any bow any kind of way you want to tie it. It's just, you know, like I said, you can pull it apart and you just stick it all together. Raffia has no rhyme or reason as to how you do a bow. It just does. So you can get a bunch of them and tie a bunch of loops if you wanted to. There was the other way of tying your shoe, which was the bunny ears. You can do that. Where you make 2 loops and then you tie them together. I was horrible at that. So I like to go ahead and make my loops, tie it around, and pull it through, and that way you can get it done. Alright, next one that we're going to look at. Let me see. Okay, so there are many ways that you can tie a bow together. You can use wire. You can use chenille stems. I typically use wire, but I use bigger pieces of wire for different reasons, because I might hook them to a wreath or something of that sort. I have a chenille stem here. Dollar Tree calls them tinsel stems, or they can be called pipe cleaners. They come in all different colors. You can get a whole pack of them for $1, and that's probably more than you will ever need for whatever projects you have. So if I were going to do a simple bow, like I said, there's always many different kinds. With a wired edge ribbon, also, you do not have to put as many loops as you would with regular ribbon. If I'm doing a grosgrain or a sheer or something like that, I'm going to do several loops, usually in odd numbers. So I might want to do 5 to 7 loops, and that's 5 to 7 on each side of the bow. So I'm going to do 5 to 7 loops, and that way it'll stand up by itself, and you won't have to worry about adding more to it. Having said that, every single one, let me show you, because I wanted to show you this real quick. I know I get sidetracked here. Every single one of these is going to come usually in about 9-foot lengths, and the smaller ribbons will come in a little bit more. That has 18 feet, which is good. But most all of your ribbons, like this size and on up, are going to come in 9-foot lengths. And why is that important? As a florist, we would typically get a bolt of ribbon that would be this size, and this size contains 90 feet. When you're doing bows, typically you want to look in yards, and you don't want to use feet. But this one is the typical of what we would receive at the flower shop for a ribbon that is, this size. Okay? And the thing about it is this one has a significant amount, but this is what you're really getting. And I wanted to cut this out so you could see this is what you're really getting right here. That's not a whole lot. And on this one is 9 foot. This is what you're really getting. You're not getting a huge thick bolt of ribbon. And also on these bigger ribbons that you might have, as well as most of these ribbons, To make one bow, if I didn't have a wired edge on it, takes 9 feet. So each of these bolts is only big enough for one bow. Unless you do a mix and match or you do something of that sort, they're only really big enough for one bow. So be mindful of that whenever you're purchasing. If you're doing a big bow of some sort, you might need more than one of these for a good bow. Alright, setting that aside, I'm going to pull out a piece of our, what is that, 1.5 or 2 inches ribbon? It says 1.5. Alright, so the first thing I want to do is, I'm going to show you this one here first. This is a wired edge ribbon, very easy. So we're going to wrap in a circle around my finger, just like this, a small circle, okay, keeping my thumb in the center, and then my other fingers down here. And then I want to take it right here, put my pointer finger here, my middle finger here, my thumb here, and then twist, okay? And that brings the print that's on the outside of the ribbon, not the inside, it brings it up to the top. So I'm going to pull that loop in just like this, okay? Keeping my thumb in the middle, my pointer finger, my middle finger, twist, pull my ring finger down to hold that one in place. So now I have my thumb, pointer, middle, ring finger, and I twisted and it's the top again. Now I can do this and continue to do the same thing with my fingers in the same place, and this is the basis for just about any bow you're going to make, and doesn't require any kind of tools other than your hands. So twist and do that. Okay, so that will show you your basic bow. And hold on, I'm gonna cut this real quick, which I hate to do, but I'm gonna do it anyways so you can see it. Alright, so I cut the little tail off, and I'm going to use this piece now, stick it underneath the bottom of my bow. Alright, and I am going to, I think I'm going to use the chenille stem. Grab the chenille stem, stick it in there where my thumb is, like so, all the way through to the back of my hand, and then place my thumb on top of the chenille stem. Go with the sides here and pull that to the front, okay? Pull the bottom chenille stem together, and then you pull them tight, and you make sure it's really, really tight. And like I said before, with twisting this, twist the bow part, not the wire part. So I'm twisting my bow to make it nice and tight. Alright, so since it's wired, I can now start to pull it out, and I want to put my thumb back in the center of my bow where that loop is. So now since I have it nice and tight, I can pull around on these pieces if I want to pull around on them, and I can make my bow really stand out by moving my little pieces around. Okay, so now that is that type of bow. As you can see, it's got a center loop on it, and if I were going to put it on something, this is just to show you what it looks like. You wouldn't put it on your hand, but just to show you what it looks like. So that is that type of bow with the chenille stem. Now, another thing about these is mixing. If I wanted to go ahead and mix, let's say make this a Halloween look, the things that you want to remember when you're mixing ribbons is you want to choose patterns that are more complementary. And meaning that is you want to have some small patterns, then have a larger pattern, and then maybe a solid or something of that sort. So I'm just going to go up underneath my chenille stem, and I could have done this before I did anything, and I'm just going to add a loop. And what I want to do is check this loop, and make sure that it's just a tiny bit longer. Just a tiny bit longer than this loop here, than the polka dotted loop. Okay, so now I'm going to go to the back, and this is, again, this is wired ribbon, so you don't have to do a whole lot, but you do have to twist. I'm going to pull it out just like that, making sure my loop is a little bit bigger than my bow length. Okay, and twist it again, and then pull it down. So that's just, I added just a simple Halloween loop to the bottom. And now what I would do is I would go back with my chenille stem that I had, and I would again twist the bow, and that would add to my bow a little bit of Halloween. Okay, now I would cut this tail and add it under, just like I did the other polka dotted tail. So we're just going to pretend it's like that for now, and that gives you another option for adding to your bow. Okay, so I'm going to go back and undo this one real quick. I really do like this black polka dotted burlap ribbon. It really makes me happy. So these are the patterns. If you're going to be mixing patterns, this is what I would do. So I wanted to just give you an idea of what this looks like. So this, let's say we're doing a Halloween theme, whatever. Okay, so I'm going to have this pattern here. That's a pretty bold pattern. Then I have the polka dotted pattern, which is a little bit calmer. Okay, then let's just say I wanted to pull in another pattern. Even though these all have the same colors, this is not going to do well with these two, because this is almost too busy for this look that I've got, and I want to stay within the same color family. So that's the right color family, but it's too busy. It's just too busy to go in this bow. So then I would look at, say, a different one. Now this one would probably work because it's more monochromatic, meaning it's just black and white. That's all it is. It's one color basically, and that is going to calm but still go with this set right here. So if I'm doing a bow, I'd probably use this and maybe a couple of this. That way you can only use maybe 2 or 3 loops of this and 2 or 3 loops of that, and you can add to things that you want to make it, you know, special and different and all that good stuff. So that would be an example of, say, a Halloween bow that I might do. And let me set that aside. And I'm just going to fold up my ribbons real quick here and push that one aside. Now let's say I wanted to do something for Christmas. I have all these wonderful red. This is just a fabric, a buffalo check fabric, and this is a red, and it's burlap. I love using burlap ribbon. I don't know why, but I do. And you can see this has kind of got the beigey color with it, so this ribbon would look great with that. This has got the white polka dots, and it's not horrible. I mean, if I wanted to do it, I'd probably do it with this burlap here, because this burlap also has white. And I may even go and mix this chevron in with those colors too, because it has white in addition to that one. So you can see I'm starting to mix patterns and mix things. So I have these calmer patterns, and then I also have something a little bit louder, and then I might even just, you know, get a wild hair and decide to add something really fancy. That's not my total thing right there. It's just not me. So you know, everybody has their own style. You do what you want, and that's the good thing. And then I have the baker's twine also that I could add in just on top of the bow. So I'm going to do a couple of bows to show you the differences in some of these things. So hang on one second. Like I said, these don't always come in lengths you would love to have them in. It's just, it doesn't work like that. Now you see on this, with this bow, I could add cotton, I could add jute, I could add a lot of different things because of the way this bow would look. So what I'm going to do is just show you how that works. This is going to be like a Christmas bow. I also found this really cool, awesome looking truck pattern and of ribbon, and my thoughts were I cut a piece of it and I may use this for a Mod Podge or something later, so I'm kind of holding on to that ribbon. In addition to that one, if I were to do this pattern ribbon, I have a buffalo check that would go fabulous with it, and so that would be a good bow. Sorry. That right there would be an excellent bow. I also had this size if I wanted to use that, and I can use that in probably a lot of different things. So that's just some other options on bows. So we've done a front loop bow, and that just had, I'll show you, that just had the front loop in the middle. Okay, so now I'm going to take this apart real quick, and I want to show you something else that you can do with the same ribbon. This is why I love wired ribbon. Okay, now you could do this with probably any type of ribbon, and it is so super simple, it's ridiculous. Okay, why they didn't teach us to do bows like this, I have no idea. Alright, so I'm going to take my polka dotted ribbon and lay it down, and what I want to do is find something that's going to be the length or the width of whatever I want to make a bow out of. So that could be a piece of cardboard, that could be just about anything that you could think of to make the width of a bow. So I could use my hand if I wanted to. Let's see. So because this is wired, I really don't need anything. So what I'm going to do is take it and fold it, just folding it right there into, let's see, about the half the width of what I want as a bow. Okay, so I'm going to fold that, just fold it flat, doesn't matter. I'm going to come back over here just like this, and I'm going to fold it flat too. Okay, fold it, doesn't matter because it's wired, you know. Flip it over, fold it again, flip it over, just like that. And like I said, you could find a piece of cardboard or something to go in it, but you don't necessarily need tools to be able to do this fabulous bows. And then, so now I've got the bases of my bow, and this is probably the easiest bow you could possibly make. Okay, that's the basis for my bow, and all I did was flip it over just like that. Okay, this is my tails for my little bow. I'm going to take my chenille stem, I'm going to put it in the middle between my fingers there on top of the bow. This one doesn't have the loop on top, but you could easily do that. Now I'm going to come around to the bottom. Alright, pull this up just like that, and I want to tighten by twisting the ribbon around the chenille stem just like that. Okay, so now I've got my chenille stem, pull it out straight because I might want to use it on a wreath or something. These are my tails, and the tails can go however you want to go. It's yours, don't worry about it, it's your style. So now I'm going to go back where I had these folded, and I'm just going to pull them apart just like this, very simply. I think that's all I got was 2 loops. Alright, this one has 3, so I'm pulling it apart, just like that. Alright, now when you do yours, you do it however you want to do it. And so when you start pulling it apart, you've got all your right sides up that you needed to have in your bow, and you can put your finger in the middle if you want to. It helps a lot of times to hold on to it and to rearrange it however you want it. And so if I were going to hang the bow up, I want both my tails going downward. So that's what I'm going to do. And let's say this is a good type of bow for doing a corsage, and then I can just squish it. You see, made a bow just like that. Very simple, easy, and because it's wired, you can make it look however you want it to look. Okay, so there's our bow. And this type of bow, there is one thing that I really do like about it. I didn't put a loop in the center or anything, but this can be a very flattened bow, and you can loop it out. And let's say you wanted to make a corsage or something. We wouldn't use chenille stems. You can tie it with ribbon as well. So if I wanted to, though, I could do this, twist my chenille stem, just like so. And I have a base for a corsage. Now I would do a much smaller bow on this, and this makes a base for a corsage. And I don't have a flower real handy right this second. But that would give you a good base for a corsage, or something that you could wear. You could, if you used ribbon, you could just tie it in a bow around the bottom. And use, when you're doing something for a corsage though, use this size ribbon. Use the small ribbon, and try to find a wired one if you can. If not, you just add more bows, add more loops. Okay, so that's another type of bow that we got. And if I want to pull it up, because what I would do is if I put flowers onto this flattened bow, I would just glue them in place, that's all. And that's the thing to do. A corsage really only needs to last for one day because it's for an event. So there's no point in worrying about, oh, am I preserving it right or wrong or whatever. It'll last for a night and a day. Like if you did it the day before, it'd be fine. As long as you got a good, tough, strong flower, it'll be fine. So set that one aside. I still like that. And we're going to pull this one. Alright, and let's see, I like this. So when you're doing something that you know you're going to have several layers to, the first thing you want to do is start with your widest layer. Whatever your widest layer is going to be at the bottom, that's what you want to start with. So for this one, I kind of want to start with this and make that my bottom layer for whatever I'm going to be doing. And so for that one, I might just do, you know, you never know, you might have one loop, you might have several loops. So if I'm making a big bow, I'm just going to pull it together like this and make the other loop and pull it together. Okay, and in this situation, you could do the wrap and make a flat bow just like I did here. And if you want to, you can go back and review and watch how to do that. It's a very simple bow. So I can pull this, and because it's wired, I don't need a lot of loops, but I want to make sure that my loops on the back layer are going to be very large, because what I'm going to be doing is sticking something over the top of it when I'm done. So I want to do my back layer loops, and I'm going to pull it out, make sure they're wide, do probably 2 to 3 loops on these big wide ribbons. You see how I did that? And I'm holding it thumb, middle finger, forefinger, ring finger. Twist, move my my ring finger underneath, make another loop. Alright, pull it out and twist. Sorry guys. Alright, and now I'm just going to cut my ribbon. Gonna hate myself for that later, but that's okay. I don't know why. I don't have anything particular planned for this. So I'm gonna cut my ribbon, and I'm gonna put a loop under the bottom. Now, there are other ways of doing that, and you may decide to do things differently, but for now, I'm just going to cut this loop. And I usually make much longer tails when I do bows. And if I'm using for, like, say, a big wreath, I'll use much longer tails on a bow. So now I'm just going to pull it together, and this is a wide ribbon, so do remember to squinch it all up as much as you can to make it good and tight, and pull down hard on that wire. Now, normally my wire that I use is a lot thicker than what the chenille stem is. So I'm going to pull that and then twist the bow around my wire. Okay. So now I have my wires all connected on my bow. I'm going to go back into this bow, find my center with my thumb, put it through there, and then I'm going to pull it loose. And you can really just, tangle with these things because it's very tough. And once you've got the ribbon tied, you can pretty much move it however you want it moved. Okay? So I've got 2 loops on either side and a tail. Alright? And that is a basic part for my big bow. Now, like I said, you move this wire or ribbon however you want it to look, and you can straighten it up and make it look pretty. So that's that part of it. So the next part that I want to do is another section of loop. Okay, and I'm going to use this one here. Now there are many different ways. I've seen people do what they call messy bows, and messy bows are really awesome also. So what I want to do is make this one just a tad smaller in loops than that one. So I'm going to pull. I'm just going to make my bows real quick. And I'm doing 2 loops. And I know I said 3 to 5, but in wired ribbon you can get away with doing anything because it's wired, and because you're not going to be, this is a multi ribbon bow, I'm not going to be using as much as I would normally in a single ribbon bow, because this is going to be a compacted multi ribbon bow. So here's the thing, when I'm doing this, I usually use a wire for each section of my bow because I want my sections to be really nice and tight. So that's what I do. I do that, twisting. And y'all, I've been doing this since I was 10 years old, so I can do bows in my sleep, and I would say to you, don't get frustrated with it. Practice. You must practice. It takes a while to get used to doing bows. Alright, so now I kind of just pulled it out a little bit to make it pretty. And then what I'm going to do is separate these 2 pieces here. I'm going to go into the center of this bow here. And if I were doing this on a actual wreath, I would be probably doing this through the wreath. Alright, so I pulled it to where either side goes through the center of this bow here. So now I can take this and twist it around the back. Alright, like this. Okay. Alright, so I just twisted them all together, and so far this is the bow that we have, and this is basically your multi-purpose bow, your several different layers. I'll get some of this out of the way for you guys so you can actually see what I'm doing. Okay. Alright, so here is some of the tails, and I'm probably going to take this tail and go back under here like this here and just add it at the bottom. Alright, and if I'd thought about it, I would have done it when I was making the big red bow and would not be worrying about that right now. So take your thumb, put it in the center of the bow where you have the wire, okay? Go back and put your other fingers down in the bottom of the bow where you have your wires also there, okay? So, and then I'm going to go and just pull it out, yank it as hard as I can, make the ribbons, the bows look, the loops look uniform and sticking up. And so that is going to be the basis for our next part of the bow. All right, so we've got 2 sections, and you can kind of see it's not the easiest thing to see, but you know, this is how we're going to show it. So next part I want to add is another burlap. So in this burlap, I also want to put in a little bit of jute, okay? And you'll see why in just a sec. Oh, I've got bow avalanche going on. Bow avalanche! Alright, so I'm going to set this to the side for just a second, and I'll show you how we're going to do this next part. Alright, so I'm going to add this also to the center of my bow. I'm just going to pull another chenille stem out if I need it. I don't know that I'll need it, but I might. Alright, so pulling this one, and I'm going to make my loops, and you can do them any way that you want to do them. If you want to do a loop in the center, you can loop it and start it with that. Put your thumb in the middle, and I usually don't do a center loop on mine because I'm usually putting flowers in and around my bows. So again, you want to make it slightly smaller, and I am not a precise individual, so you know, I don't measure all this stuff out. So I'm doing that, and I'm going to go and pull this one here, and then have my thumb, forefinger, middle finger, ring finger. Okay, pull it out, twist it, and honestly on the burlap you can't tell, but it's just a habit for me now to twist it to pull the right side out, and then move my fingers to where they are supposed to be, and twist again, pull my ring finger, make a loop. Alrighty, so I've got 2 loops on either side, so I'm going to do 1 more loop, so I can have 3 full loops on the top of my bow. Okay, and I'm just twisting it through, and I'm going to cut and cut again. Now this so far is 3 to 4 ribbons that I have used, and the ribbons are $1 a piece. That's $3 because I got them from Dollar Tree. So I'm putting my piece of chenille stem, and yes, I do realize it's a completely different color than the other 2, and that's okay. It's not a big deal. So I'm pulling it tight, squunching it together nice and tight, and I'm going to twist the bow. Okay, I used to use pliers all the time to twist my bows because I like my wires nice and tight. That way you can yank on a bow and it's not going anywhere. But I learned that if you just twist the bow and not the wire, it makes it tight pretty quickly. Alright, so I'm just going to pull on it and get it looking kind of how I want it. And this is to straighten, make sure the bow's nice and fluffy. Pull my tails down. Alright, and fluff it up. Okay. Alrighty. Now you can kind of see, get an idea of what the bow looks like. So Now I just want to take some of this jute, and this is just for fun. This is just an extra. So I'm just going to do as if I were doing the other type of bow, where I'm just pulling loops is all I'm doing, because you don't really have to do a whole lot with this stuff. So pull, make very loose, crazy looking loops like you would the raffia. So that's what I'm going to do. Make a bunch of crazy looking loops. And I might even have used the raffia also in the middle. So at this point, what I do afterwards is go back and add in flowers and berries and greenery and all kinds of good stuff. Alright. So I'm just going to add in some tails. And you can do whatever you want to do with yours, so you don't have to do this. Okay. And one more. That ought to do it. If it looks like a spider, it's looking right. One long one, and the long one we're going to use just across the center. We're going to come around the bottom, make sure it's even. We have flipped this up and tie it in a knot on the bottom, and this takes skill. Sometimes you use your teeth. Alright, got it tight, and one more loop. Jute twine does not taste good. Alright, so now I'm just going to literally pull it and hang it down, and then I'll take my two pieces that I have here and I'm going to tie them across the middle of this bow. It's funny, I use bows a lot on my wreaths and stuff, but when it comes to doing flower arrangements and fresh flower arrangements, silk, whatever, I'm not a big fan. I'm really not. It's kind of a funny thing, you know. So now I've just added a little bit of mess to my bow to make it look all nice and fluffy and pretty. Okay, so I'm gonna come back and take my two pieces that I had here. I'm gonna go through the middle of this ginormous bow that I have, and like I said, if this were on a wreath, it would be much easier to see and notice and all that good stuff. So I'm taking that and I'm just going to tie it around the bottom here. Just twist it over. And the good thing about this is easy to come apart as it is to put together. So there I have my ginormous bow, and I'm going to pull all my loops around and pull my ribbon around to get it where I want it to go. And I can, because it's all tightly wired, and it'll be pretty that way. Alright, hold on. I'm getting there. It just takes a minute. So usually when I do a bow like this, I will have one really big one and maybe two smaller ones on a wreath, and maybe some smaller pieces or something. Just depends on, you know, what kind of wreath I'm doing or what I'm doing in general. So that is, and you could use this as a base for just about anything. If you want to just add flowers and then hang this on your door, you could do that as well. So that gives you an idea of what it would look like, and at this point it's just a matter of playing with it and getting it to how you want it to look. See? And there's your bow. Okay, so now I have a little red satin ribbon. Now, depending on the ribbon, if it is the same side on one side as it is on the other, there's no need to twist in between each loop. For instance, this grosgrain ribbon, it's the same on either side, so you can basically fold it like you would an accordion or a fan, or however you want to do it. You can just go back and forth just like that without having to twist anything. And all you have to do at that point is tie it across the center or use a wire, or whatever way you want to do it. You would bring this across the middle and you would just tie it as tightly as you could. Or you could also use a wire. If you wanted to use a wire, you can do that as well. And it'll pull out and be just a very nice, pretty little bow. You can pull out the loops just like we did in the other ones. Hold on one sec, let me see. I'll use a chenille stem to show and demonstrate. That way I can get it undone. Alright, so all I'm doing is I folded it back and forth, you know, just like you were folding a napkin or something to make a, remember the days when you used to make a fan with a napkin? That's basically all I did. And I'm just going to pull these pieces together. I'm going to take my chenille stem. Now if I were using a piece of string, I could do that. I would just tie it in a knot just like you would normally. Remember to squinch it together as much as possible and twist the bow itself. And then when you get it twisted to the way that you want it to look, you pull it down and you pull out the loops. So that is basically, you want to spiral them out a little bit so that they all look defined and separated and not one on top of the other. Alrighty, so that would be kind of what we're talking about. Of course, you would work with it and play with it a lot more and make it super pretty. And this is just for demonstration purposes, but that's the grosgrain ribbon, and that's how we could do that one. Now with a satin, hold on, let me undo this. And that is also, like I said, the best reason to use like a grosgrain ribbon. There's no wrinkles in it, and if there were wrinkles in it, I could iron them right on out. And the same with the satin ribbon, and it has to be the real satin ribbon, not the plastic stuff they have nowadays. But and honestly, I got this at the Dollar Tree, and the Dollar Tree is selling real satin ribbon, so hey. Alright, so on this one here, I would just go back and forth. I could either do it just like the accordion situation I showed, like you would with a napkin, and fold it back and forth just like this. I could do it that way, or we could do it the flat bow method like we did before when we made this polka dotted flat bow. So I would just pull this back and forth a couple of times and either tie it with a string or a chenille stem or a piece of wire, whatever we want. We go around through the middle, just like that, and we're going to pull it up tight so that it's nice and tight, and squinch it together, like the word squinch it. It's a new word. It's my word. I made it up. And then we're going to twist the bow. And then we take it and we pull it apart again. And that is, the tighter the twist on that wire, the better your bow will end up looking. Because the more you can actually pull on the loops of the ribbon, and make them fan out. And that's the term you want to use, is the proper term, is fan out, and not look like it's all sitting on top of each other. You want the loops to be opposites, preferably opposite of one another, or in a spiral, or however you want it to do. And if you pull too much and you don't get it tight enough, and it happens to everybody, it even happens to me, especially when you're using satin ribbon, because real satin ribbon is very slick and slippery. So, and a lot of times with the satin ribbon, we're using that when we're going to be doing something else with it. So it's not just, the bow isn't going to stand on its own 2 feet, so to speak. It's going to be in a corsage. It's going to be surrounded by things. And that's another thing I meant to mention, is that when you have a bow, the bow itself does not have to look perfect. It can be just the loops, because by the time that you add flowers, and this is just an example so you can see the different colors, by the time that you add flowers, and let's say you add some leaves, and this is just an example, we would not dare leave it that way with red and pink flowers. Alright, so by the time that you add things to the bow, you're going to not have to worry about any little imperfections, because they will be all covered up by your flowers and your leaves and everything that goes with it. So that just gives you an idea of some of the things you can do. And I will, in my next video, I'm going to go ahead and make the bow for it, but in my next video I will be doing a corsage for you so you can see how to do them. And I will tell you, it's kind of funny, because a lot of artists and florists and other people are always like, well, you can't show people how to make those things. They won't ever come buy it from us. And I always try to tell them, like, you underestimate how lazy people truly are. But I heard it put another way today. So I found that to be quite funny. I always said, you know, you underestimate how lazy people are, and the fact that they see you doing it and they don't want to do it. They just want to watch you do it. But I heard somebody else say it a different way today. They were like, well, you know, a lot of times you'll watch somebody do something, say like a DIY or home improvement or something of the sort, and you watch them do it, and then you figure out how much there is to doing whatever it is that they're doing and how hard it truly is, and you go, oh, no, I think I better hire somebody. So that's a good way to think about it as well. So I'm just going to put this aside for a minute, and I'm going to do a different one. I'm going to take some of our sample ribbons that we've been using, and these are very much the colors for fall this year. It's really like, I'll show you just a sec. These soft pastel-y colors are really the fall colors for this year, and they're really pretty, and so that soft pastel kind of look to it is what's going in. So I don't do anything that way, mine's got to be bright, but that just gives you an idea. So I'm going to take my grosgrain ribbons and my sheer, this is a sheer, satin sheer, and I am going to make up a bow and tie it with my orange string. So you can do several different kinds of bows in several different ways, and I really did want to do this in real time so that you could get an idea of what was going on. So I didn't want to have to go back over and do a voiceover. I will if I have to, but I don't want to. I wanted you to be able to see in great detail everything that I'm doing. So these are 3 different colors of ribbon, and the way to do ribbons nowadays is to stack ribbons. And for most of your bows, you want to stack multiple colors or layers of ribbon, and we talked about that earlier. So you don't have to do quite as much when you're doing this. So I'm just going to take these 3 ribbons that I have, and I wanted to stack them just like this. And I'm going to be doing a traditional way of making a bow, so I'm going to twist it here so that my orange is on top. If the orange is not on top, you didn't do it right. So now I'm going to go and make another loop here like that, and I'm going to twist it down here, and the orange is on top. So I'm going to make that into another loop here. And really, I like to do even numbers of loops. I don't want to do, odd numbers of loops. I don't want to do even. Generally, that's what you want to do. But when you're doing multiple stacks of ribbons and different kinds of ribbons, you don't necessarily have to follow the rules on that. So now I'm just going to take a piece of wire and I'm going to put it in the middle. And the only reason I'm using wire is because when you're using more than one ribbon type, and multiple ribbons, you want to have the best tightness on there that you can possibly have. And the best way to tighten is going to be through wire. And chenille stems are nice and all if you're going to do just a simple little bow, but honestly, when you're really wanting to pull on some ribbon, and that means, by pulling I mean like yank, you know, make sure that you've got it moved all out of place. And if you're really wanting to pull on it, you want to use a piece of wire because you can get the ribbon much tighter joined together. And so then you would just take them just like so, and you would just pull all the pieces apart, and you have a multicolored ribbon, a multicolored bow. Just that simply. Hold on, if I can get this up. There we are. So yeah, it's really easy to do several different types of ribbon at one time in layers, and make it look like a really, really pretty custom made bow. It doesn't look like a store-bought bow, so to speak. It looks like you did it up for them by using just different layers of ribbon, just like that. That's all there is to it. A simple little bow. And so you can see it's a really pretty colors, and it's got 3 different colors in it. And I didn't add the tails to it like I would normally do, but that's just another, you know, example of a different type of bow to make. Alright, so now I'm going to undo this one because I want to show you yet another one. I bet y'all never knew there was so darn many ways to make bows, right? So this one seems to be the popular way to do bows right now. So hey, hang on a second and I'm going to show you what I mean. So what they will do in these things is they will use several different layers of ribbon, just like I did, and they start, you know, cutting them, and they call it a messy bow. And so they'll take like a couple of pieces, say like so, and you can do these any way you want to. Hold on, I'll show you. And then they'll take a couple more pieces of a different kind, and they'll do this. And I will be honest with you, this is not a bow. This is ribbon tails. Okay, let's see, what else can we use? Oh, that's a pretty one. I do like this one a lot. Alright, so I'm just taking 2 pieces of each of these kind. Nah. Yeah, I think so. think, though, I will probably use the smaller bolt, perhaps. Yeah. Okay. So I am not being as precise as those people would be who make these types of bows. Nothing against that. Be precise as you want to be. That's just not me. So all I'm doing is cutting some lengths of ribbon. I don't even really care how long they are. And because when it comes down to it in the end, they're all going to be cut anyways. They're going to be cut to whatever lengths you want. And you can also do this in between if you want to. And this is always a good tip. You can make the finished edges. And what that is you take the piece of ribbon, like you see here. And it's got the squared off edge right now. And you're going to fold it in half. And usually you want to do it on the top side of the ribbon, not on the bottom side. So you fold it in half. And you come in with your scissors. Now, please remember, I'm a lefty, so mine is going to look different than you. You might have to sit in front of a mirror to do it. It's okay. So I'm going to start on the inside and go towards the wire on this ribbon. And so that, and cut it at an angle towards the end of the ribbon. So when I open it, I have a finished edge. It is no longer a squared off edge. And that is just a professional way of doing it and making it look fancy. Alright, so now I have these strips of ribbon. Oh, they're so pretty, they're so wonderful, blah, blah, blah. Alright, and I'm going to take, say, a couple of these that I've been playing around with and all that good stuff. Because everybody needs this. And this is what they call, whoever they are, they call this a messy bow. I call this ribbon tails. So, I think I can get 2 out of that. Let's see. Now, I do adore some of the preciseness of some of the people that do this. Because you don't waste anything, that's for sure. But that's just not in my nature to do, so there. Alright, so I have all these pieces. And this is the pièce de résistance, or whatever you call it, I don't know. And this is another situation where you can use a chenille stem, and I see a lot of folks out there that do use a chenille stem, and it's not really my favorite way to do this because I really like to yank on the stuff, so I always tend to use an actual piece of wire so I can get it good and tight. And that's just me. You do it any way that you want to do it. I don't really care. So I'm going to take these little pieces here of my orange jute. I got those cut in half. And like I said, you normally would go and you do the finished edge on all of them. In the interest of saving time, because I think this video is really super long already, I am going to not do that. So and also, you would do a random number of things, a random number of ribbons and stuff like that. And mine have tended, of course, because the links that I had have come out to be more or less an even number. So, not the best idea. So, the first thing, though, I like to do with this, if I'm going to do this type of a ribbon tail or whatever you want to call it, the things that I want to do first is I want to lay down my largest ribbons, and I want to work towards my smallest ribbons, meaning from this width here down to this width, down to this width, and then down to this one. And that way you've got a gradual, like a progression of sizes on these bows and the ribbon. So I am starting with my truck, in a pretty orange truck, and I do really like this, and I do not remember where I found this ribbon. Probably at Hobby Lobby. I don't really remember. It's either there or the Dollar General or something of the sort. It is a Celebrate Harvest 9-foot ribbon. So I don't know. Oh, Walmart. Well then, it's from Walmart. So run, break down the doors of Walmart and grab this truck ribbon, y'all, because trucks are really popular right now. Okay. So the next thing, I'm going to start with that one, and I think I want to do a polka dot. Now y'all, this is supposed to be random, but I'm not doing random because I don't have random amounts. I'm going to do, maybe I'll do an orange piece there, maybe another piece here of that color, maybe a green. I like to do, like I said, I've always liked to do mine large ribbon to small ribbon, and I'm going to show you why when I get it done. Alright, so I'm going to do that, but then I want to mix a couple of other pieces in. So I'm going to put this piece, go back through, and the reason why, and I'm going to show you two different ways. Alright, so if I got this and I bound it all together, and then I put this in here, I tend to think most of the time when I'm doing bows, if I'm doing a multi-bow, meaning I'm using all these types of ribbon like I showed you a few minutes ago, I really want to do wide ribbon to narrow ribbon, so that way when you fan it all out, and I'll show you, because this is just fanning. Okay, we're not actually putting anything together. When you fan it all out, you have the bottom ones, and if you have all the ones on top, they just show up a lot better. But for our messy bow today, and this is why they call it a messy bow, or as I like to call it, ribbon tails. Alright, so we are going to mix and match, because that's the way they do it, so that's how we're going to do it. So let's see. First thing I want is my little trucks down there, some polka dotted burlap, some orange, or orange. Orange is how a lot of folks say it around here. That's just the way they do. Alright, so then I want to do black and white, let's say. Maybe another burlap, maybe a green. Maybe a piece of string that's colored orange, or orange, whichever way you want to call it. And you do you. Alright, we're going to do a piece of yellow, maybe another black and white. How about another truck? Let's do a truck. Do a truck. And then we're going to do some orange and some greens and a burlap and a yellow grosgrain, some more of this, whatever this is, which is burlap polka dots, some black and white buffalo check. We've got a few more right here. And this is the orange, the green, the orange jute. I should have just gotten big rolls of jute and I could dye them myself and then top it off with a little bit of yellow. Okay, so that is all we got to do on that one. And then we wrap it together either with a chenille stem Or we can wrap it together with a piece of string if we wanted to, like some more jute. Or I can add more string to this. I just had some major deja vu, hun. I don't know why. Alright, so I can put that in there. I can use this to tie around it if I wanted to. Or I can use the chenille stem, which I think I'm going to try the chenille stem first and see how that comes out. Now, when you see all those people do this online a lot, they usually have a bodabra or something of the sort. I'm just doing this by hand. All I did was pull that chenille stem up underneath it, and I'm going to pull it together. So actually, I want to do it from the top. I'll do it from the top here and pull these layers up. And I think I'm going to end up liking string better than this chenille stem. It's just not strong enough for me, I guess. That's the way I look at it. So I'm pulling it together just like I do a regular bow. I am squinching it in the middle. In other words, making it small and making up words as I go. And then I'm going to take it as tight as I can possibly take it and twist that bow around just like that. Alright, so this is going to be my messy bow that is now an absolute mess. So what I'm going to do is pull these pieces out, and I want to arrange them however I want them to look. So if I want to lay them different directions so that all the ribbon shows, and a lot of folks just take this stuff and they go, and that's why they call it the messy bow, because they're like, it's a bow. And that would drive me absolutely crazy, but you know, that's why it's called a messy bow, because you don't have to do a whole lot to it and you can make it look pretty cute. So I'm just going to pull out some of these crazy looking streamers and push them all over the place. And you can't hurt anything. This, like I said before, as long as you've got this part right, nice and tight, you can't really hurt anything with this. You can't, I mean, what's the worst that could happen is you have to go back and take it apart or put it back together or whatever your little heart desires, because this is your project. You do it however that you want it. Channeling Bob Ross again. Yep. He's the man. Alright, so all I'm doing is pulling these pieces out, making them as wide as possible. Alrighty. Now this is a lot larger than a bow than I needed, or whatever you want to call this thing. So now you would just go back into this and put your pieces. Now I should have done this before. I put it together, and I'm going to do my finished edges. And the finished edges, they are the thing that makes this messy bow work, because otherwise it just would not be as attractive. As you can tell, it's just like whatever. So these doing the finished edges is what makes it look attractive. So you do want to do that every time that you do one of these kind of bows for sure. Alright, and we're going to flip this around. I should have done this while I was making it, and that would have made much more sense, but here we are. Now I'm in a fast hurry trying to cut them, and it's going to look really messy. All right. I love the black and white in here with the fall colors. It makes it really pop. Okay, take my little bow pieces because I don't think that there's much I can use them for. And set that aside. So yeah, and you don't need as many wired ribbons as I have in this joker, and the messier it is, pretty much the better it looks. I mean, really, I know that sounds silly, but that's just the nature of the beast, so to speak. So fluff it and squinch it and squish it, and then it's a happy bow. Just like that. It's a happy, happy bow. In your happy little world, you can do whatever you happy little self wants to do. See? And you don't have to do a whole lot to it. So that is your messy bow. And a lot of messy ribbon. And so I could even take it with this chenille stem and twist tie it in the back, just like this. And make me a loop. So I could actually add a few flowers here and there and hang it on my door just like that. And it would hang and be just fine. If I wanted to, I could put another bow in the middle of it and make a multi-bow like I do with many of my bows, as I add more and more and more. So you can never have enough. But there you go. Alright, so I hope you enjoyed all the bow tutorial. I know it's long and a lot of video, but I wanted you to understand the different types of ribbon and materials that you're going to be working with, so that you get an idea of what you're going to be using for which situation. The wider ribbons are typically used for wreaths and for door hangers and garlands and you know, funerals and stuff like that. The wider the ribbon, the bigger the occasion is what I call it. But the small narrow ribbons are used for corsages, and these medium ribbons, they are for most everything else. If you're doing a dozen roses, if you're doing you know, an arrangement of any kind, and they're good for adding to other types of bows and you know, things that you might need it for. And there you go. Hi, did you click that subscribe button and the notification bell? Well, if you don't hit that notification bell, you will miss out on our Thursday videos. So please go ahead, click it, and you'll be able to watch our videos that are coming up.